Hey and welcome, I'm Hammeh and it's D.va Lore time. In this video I'm going to round up what we've learned lore and story-wise and can speculate about too with an analysis of the new animated short Shooting Star. During Blizzard's Korean Fan Fest event and Gamescom 2018, we not only got a new map in Busan, Korea, but an animated short where we've learned a lot more about D.va's day-to-day life in MEKA, more on her backstory, possible motivations and character too. Here's my story and lore analysis and reactions, and first thoughts on the short. It contains spoilers of course, so look away now if you want to watch it first and then come back to this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and timecodes as always are in the description below if you want to skip. Firstly, we learnt a lot about MEKA the organisation and as a fighting force as to how it operates. Led by Captain Myung, her voice is apparently the voice you can hear on the tannoy in the MEKA base as part of the Busan map. It seems like MEKA live off the coast of the city most of the time. With simulators and training facilities inside of the base, I'd say they live in slightly plusher than the average soldier's barracks. We have colour-coded quarters with doors according to the colours of their mechs, and although they have a few comforts, it seems pretty insular. When D.va's jealous of May in her voice line,
May, I love reading your journal. I'm so jealous you get to go to all those places.
most probably reflects that the squad are pretty on duty most of the time here, or not perhaps going very far from Busan. They are on active military service by the looks, albeit with a few more press conferences. How much time the squad would have to go elsewhere probably depends on how often the Gyushin Omnics actually show up, what time frame they come back on, but more on that later. There are 5 people in the MEKA squad that we're introduced to by name. Now, given that her friend dae-hyun is a mechanic, apparently specifically assigned to D.va according to Michael Chu, unless she's the special case, it's fair to speculate that other MEKA pilots might have their own dedicated mechanics too. You can take a look at the MEKA pilots and the names of their mechs, as well as what the mechs look like in the MEKA base level of Busan. Firstly, there's dae-hyun, codenamed Casino, with his mech La Princesse Serene, and it looks like quite a quick one. We then have Yuna, or D.mon. Her mech is called Beast and it looks kind of tanky. We see in this image that it has a shield. Now, d.mon is known as d.mon because apparently she was in the same gaming team as D.va, hence the same style of handle. A nice cool little detail there. Next we have Hana, D.va, and of course her mech Toki, which is sort of bunny or rabbit in Korean, seems like a bit of an all-rounder. We then have Kyung-soo, or King, and his mech is called Sunjaeun. New Age in Korean, or kind of some kind of Korean fire arrow rocket apparently. That kind of fits quite well as he's kind of got the artillery bot pop up open sections with rockets. They kind of look like Farah's rocket barrage if you take a look closely. We then have Seung-hwa, or Overlord, and his mech is called Mastermind. It seems to have detachable bots or drones. Now, although the Shooting Star program at the beginning said that the squad took a few hits, the pictures tell a little bit of a different story if we look closely. We can see what appears to be Overlord being helped from his wrecked mech by d.mon. Her mech is also wrecked, and also when D.va has her flashback we hear a lady's voice, what is probably d.mon, calling out that they've been hit. The whole squad is looking pretty beat up in the press conference as well, so in spite of the rosy picture painted by the Shooting Star program, it didn't appear that this fight went very well for MEKA. However, it appears that MEKA Command are confident enough after the encounter to allow 4 of their pilots, or indeed maybe all of their pilots, and D.va said no, to go on some kind of leave. Secondly, it was really cool in this short to learn a lot more about D.va's character and herself as a person. Well, we can see that she's very highly marketed and merchandised and sponsored. She's got her catchphrases, I play to win, playing on Shooting Star at the beginning, nerf this on the cup noodles amongst all things, and her sponsorships, she's got Nano Cola, whatever this is, this certified energy drink as it appears on the bottom of the can, and the Nano Noodles it sees too. This is actually going to be coming as a skin for D.va at some point, which is really, really cool. For D.va's past, well, we know she used to tinker and engineer a little bit, working on a hoverbite with her friend dae-hyun, so that means that at least we have some explanation for why D.va is able to tinker a little bit with her mech. They overcharged the reactor of a hoverbike, won a race, apparently almost killed herself in the process, showing that young D.va was not afraid of danger or risk even then. Now, the rest of her squad are on leave. Presumably D.va had the option to go as well, but she seems happy in this environment, perhaps more so than the glitz and glamour image that the sponsorships and that the Shooting Star TV program gives off. A nice little touch, she's listening to her Lucio beats as she works, a nice nod and match up with her voice lines in game saying that she loves his album. Now, not only is D.va seeming happier in this environment, but perhaps she feels a responsibility and maybe almost a compulsion or pressure to do so. She's putting on a brave exterior, but in her little flashback to the last Gyushin fight against the giant Omnic, we can clearly see she's a bit traumatized and flashing back to those events. She's also not admitting her fears or concerns to an old and good friend in front of her, a bit of a warning sign. D.va, taking everything on her shoulders, is refusing to take breaks, saying that the enemy is out there adapting, getting stronger, and seeing her as being the focal point of everything, saying that her squad, her country, count on her, and they'll lose everything if she doesn't do what she's doing. There's a lot of pressure on young Hana, with TV shows proclaiming her as a national hero, being the focus of a broadcast. Of course, we don't know how much the other mecha pilots receive attention, but probably a reasonable amount. If we have a look at the other mechs, they do have sponsors on their mecha too, but there's certainly a lot of pressure on these 19-year-old shoulders. Next, the Gyushin Omnics. Well, these are apparently ghost Omnics in Korean. Now, previously, bar a few little bits and bobs talked around outside of the game and outside of the bio, all we really knew about D.va and the situation in Korea was D.va's bio, which wasn't loads. We knew that there were these kaiju-style Omnics. We saw D.va fighting a large Omnic, presumably the one we saw in the flashback in the We Are Overwatch animated shorts teaser. These kaiju Omnics, the giant monster Japanese film genre, you know, the Godzilla-type films, things like Pacific Rim have kind of taken this back to the mech side recently. In the last fight, MEKA barely won. There was huge damage to their mechs. D.va's is the only mech operating right now, and apparently, according to dae-hyun, the Gyushin won't be back for months. The other members of MEKA, apparently according to Michael Chu, suffered varying degrees of injury but no fatalities. Now, the months bit is interesting. The threat of these Gyushin Omnics attacking Korea and the surrounding countries in the surrounding area is actually getting more severe. Now, in D.va's bio, it says every few years this mech or this mech Omnic force would come out of the sea. In the short, dae-hyun of course says the Omnics won't be back for months, and then when MEKA actually gets attacked and D.va has to scramble in this short, we presume that it's been a very, very short period of time. They said last week apparently that this attack was. So we can see a timeline that's getting shorter and shorter and shorter before the mechs attack again. It's getting faster and faster, more and more pressure, more and more danger. Now, we knew from D.va's bio that these Omnics, or the giant Omnic, used to adapt and sort of reconfigure itself compared to what it did. The whole reason that mecha pilots are gamers and humans is that previously mecha was a drone network, and then the Omnic managed to somehow disrupt and scramble the drone networks, hence why human pilots were used. These smaller versions of Omnics, whether or not we've seen them before, arrived earlier than expected, and they're very Matrix-like, if you've seen the Matrix, like the Sentinels and that, particularly the propulsion, the kind of squid-style tail behind it moving it along. Now, D.va is surprised by these moving fast. It's as if she hadn't seen these kind of mechs and seen how they move before, and also the air braking, so that they get behind D.va, is perhaps a sign of these Omnics adapting to the tactics of mecha, perhaps even D.va herself. Well, large big mechs have been defeated, so maybe the AI, whatever the force is, and we don't know what it is behind this Omnic factory that's apparently in or under the sea, whatever is causing these Omnics to be made from this Omnic factory or base, it's adapting, it's changing, it's trying new things to try and defeat mecha. Next up, well, we see D.va in combat. Now, the combat sequence of this short is kind of an animator's love letter to several films and TV series. I mean, the whole short is, in fact. There's this feeling of like Tron music and lighting at the beginning of the fight a little bit. It feels very Blade Runner-y at the beginning when the city is being panned through. We see D.va's abilities being showcased: defense matrix, micro missiles, her boost. Now, it's worth noting here that D.va's mech can kind of fly, but seemingly only for a set period of time. At the end, or towards the end of the short, dae-hyun says to D.va that her reactor is becoming very unstable, whether that's due to the way that she's been throwing it around or the fact that she's had 2 fusion cannons blasted off of it, who knows. She can't stay out for long apparently, or she'll blow the whole thing. And although there's apparently a bit of a time limit on how D.va can stay in the air, she is very, very maneuverable and very skilled. I love the point where she grips onto the Omnic with feet before blasting it, jumping off, spinning around and flying off again. There's a moment where she turns around and guns 2 of the Omnics down. Now, the one gun spinning round in a whirling arc is a bit of a nod to the Matrix. If you have a look at Captain Mifune in the Matrix 3 Battle for Zion, he's firing with only 1 gun at points, thanks to patron Meow Indeed, who sent a bunch of them in. With the combat cinematography, there's certainly nods to Appleseed, so many beautiful angles, the cuts outside of the mech, the over-the-shoulder shots, the in-cockpit shots I love, just like you're playing in-game, and this beautiful shot I really appreciated of D.va rising through the clouds after her dispersing the missiles fired by the Gyushin with her defense matrix. Even her spinning out of the mech in mid-air to shoot the reactor and self-destruct the mech is like her highlight intro in-game. So much attention to detail in the animation of this one. Now, in the last bit of the combat, it's worth noting that D.va's fall out of her mecha is a very, very, very dangerous one and could well have been fatal. She is very, very lucky to be alive at all. Now, if you fall 250 feet, roughly 76 meters onto water, there's not much chance of you surviving. And of course, the closer you are to the water, the more chances you have. Now, D.va and the Omnics seem to be careering up and down in the sky at points very close to the water. We can't take the speed of her falling from when she goes out of the mech to when she blacks out as being real time, of course. We need to give some creative license for that. But we do see that in one of the little flashback shots of her, we see a doctor over her with resus paddles to give her a shock. So it's fair to assume that she's needed resuscitating or maybe even almost died. Well, D.va's certainly a tough cookie, and surviving something which is potentially the force of a speeding truck hitting a concrete building, it's worth having a look at, finally, how the media in Korea and the portrayal of MEKA works. Now, in Shooting Star at the beginning, the image presented of D.va is very different to her day-to-day as we saw. Instead of the glitz and glamour, she's repairing her mech with potato chips and fizzy drink, being an homage to the Mountain Dew and Doritos Gremlin D.va meme that the Overwatch community has loved, well, in part, over the last few years. Now, after the Gyushin fight, the media says that she's unharmed. This is propaganda, keeping the public calm again, and this is cited as being a direct quote from the authorities, where in actual fact D.va isn't taking time off and is making a new mech. Now, thanks very much to Watcher Perry Mouse who sent these in. The translations of little bits on D.va's cast was very cool. There are lots of well wishes, no names apparently. One says love you, the other one says thank you, another says D.va's the best, and then one says fighting in the kind of way that Koreans sort of say fighting in terms of supporting esports, a very StarCrafty thing in the past. Now, the green letters apparently say D.va #1, and there are similar other supportive sentiments on there. So if you translate or speak Korean and do have any knowledge in that, do let us know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts as well. And as the two affirm their friendship and D.va acknowledges that she does need the help of someone like dae-hyun and good friends, she can't do it all on her own, there is a question at the end of what of Korea in the region? The threat is changing, the threat is escalating in frequency, it's happening more often. Will MEKA and Korea be able to keep up on their own? How will the Gyushin Omnics react next? And, interestingly, what role will Overwatch play in all this? In the background of the news report, in the Brazilian Portuguese, I believe, dub of this trailer, there's a mention of Overwatch sightings, which is cool, actually tying it into the rest of the universe. You don't get that in the English one. Thanks very much to watcher Lian Lu for sending in that little tip. So thanks very much for tuning in to my animated short analysis. If you enjoyed this, do throw a like, subscribe, it really helps me out, and comment below with what you thought of the short. Did you enjoy it? Did you not? Did you like the story told? Who would you like to see in the next animated short? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks to my patrons on Patreon who make these videos and my channel possible. If you'd like to support the channel from $1 a month, check out patreon.com/Hammeh and check out all my other Overwatch lore interactions and voice lines in the playlist below. Cheers for tuning in. I've been Hammeh. Take it easy.